The people who intimidate others the most are usually the ones not trying to at all. And there's real psychology behind why. Think about the person in your life who makes a room go quiet just by walking in. They're not loud, they're not aggressive, they might barely say a word, and yet people stand a little straighter around them. Here's the strange part. They usually have no idea they're doing it, because intimidation isn't about force, it's about signals you send without meaning to. Today we're breaking down 7 of them. 7 quiet signs you intimidate people without realizing it. Stick around, because number 5 catches almost everyone off guard. Sign 1. You're comfortable with silence. Most people are terrified of a pause. When a conversation goes quiet, they rush to fill it. There's research behind that panic. A Dutch psychologist named Namke Coudenberg studied conversational silence. She found a gap of just 4 seconds is enough to make people feel anxious and rejected. 4 seconds. That's all it takes for most of us to start scrambling for words. So we fill the air with anything. The weather, filler, a nervous little laugh. But some people don't. They let the silence sit there, completely at ease. And here's the reframe. When you're not desperate to fill a pause, you send a signal. You're saying, without words, that you don't need this moment to go smoothly to feel okay. That quiet comfort reads as control, and control, to an anxious brain, reads as power. Picture a meeting where someone makes a bold claim, and then, nothing. You just look at them. You're not being rude, you're thinking. But that pause makes them explain themselves twice. The person who can sit in silence often ends up running the room without raising their voice. Sign 2. You have no need for drama. Some people seem to collect chaos. There's always a feud, a crisis, a villain in their story. And then there are people who are just calm, not boring, just unbothered. Psychologists who study personality call this low neuroticism, high emotional stability. There's also a thing called emotional contagion, mapped by the researcher Elaine Hatfield. We literally catch each other's feelings. The way you catch a yawn across a room. Drama spreads because most people pass it along. They take the bait and amplify it. But when you don't pick it up, when the spark hits you and just goes out, something shifts. Here's the reframe. People who run on drama need a reaction to keep the fire going. When you refuse to react, you're not giving them fuel. You quietly starve the whole thing. Imagine someone comes to you buzzing with gossip, expecting you to gasp. Instead, you just say, anyway, and change the subject. They feel strangely off balance, like they reached for a step that wasn't there. Your calm didn't attack them, it just refused to play. And that can feel unnerving. Sign 3. You ask real questions instead of small talk. Small talk is a script. How are you? Good. You? Everyone knows their lines. It's safe. It's comfortable. And some people just skip it. Researchers at Harvard, led by Karen Huang, studied what makes people likable in conversation. They found the people who ask more real, follow-up questions are consistently better liked. But there's a flip side. Work on Deeper Conversation by the psychologist Matthias Mehl found that happier people have fewer shallow exchanges and far more meaningful ones. So when you skip the script and ask something real, you break a social pattern. And here's the reframe. A real question asks the other person to actually show up. What do you do? Is easy. What's something you've changed your mind about lately? Is not. You're not interrogating them. You're inviting them past the wall most people hide behind. Some people love it. They light up, finally talking about something that matters, but others freeze, because you walked straight past the polite script they use to stay safe. That's the intimidation. You're not playing the easy game everyone else agreed to play. Sign 4. You stay calm when things escalate. When a conversation heats up, most people mirror it. Their voice rises, so your voice rises. It's almost automatic. We match the energy that's put in front of us. There's a famous experiment in psychology called the still face, run by Edward Tronick. A parent goes blank and stops reacting, and within seconds, the child becomes deeply distressed. It shows how wired we are to expect a matching response from the people around us. So when someone escalates and you don't match it, you break that wiring. Here's the reframe. The person raising their voice is reaching for a handle on you. They want your reaction. Your calm means there's nothing for them to grab. Picture someone getting louder, sharper, trying to pull you into the fight. And you just stay even. Same slow voice, same steady eyes. 9 times out of 10, they escalate once more, then run out of air and deflate. You didn't win by overpowering them. You won by refusing to lose your footing. And to someone who relies on heat, your stillness can feel like the most unnerving thing in the room. Sign 5. You read people without saying much. Some people walk into a room and just know who's tense, who's lying, who's not okay. In psychology, this fast, accurate read is called thin slicing. Researchers Nalini Ambady and Robert Rosenthal showed people judge others startlingly well from just a few seconds of behavior, sometimes as accurately as from far longer. There's a related skill researchers call empathic accuracy, reading what someone actually feels. Most people are busy planning what to say next. You're busy noticing. And here's the reframe. Being seen accurately is one of the most exposing feelings there is. When you quietly notice what others are trying to hide, they feel transparent around you. Picture a friend saying, "I'm fine," with a face that clearly isn't. Most people nod and move on. You pause and say, "Are you though?" Suddenly they feel caught, like you can see the thing they thought they'd covered. You didn't say much, you don't have to. The noticing does the work, and people who feel read, without knowing how you did it, tend to keep a respectful distance. Sign 6. You have a filter. Not every thought you have makes it out of your mouth. There's a gap between feeling and saying. The psychologist Mark Snyder studied something called self-monitoring. How much people manage and adjust what they show to the world. But the deeper piece is simple impulse control. The pause between a trigger and a response. Most people react instantly. Whatever they feel, you watch it land on their face. Some people don't. There's a beat first, a filter that decides what's actually worth saying. And here's the reframe. When you don't broadcast every reaction, people can't read you easily. They can't tell if they got to you. They can't predict what you'll do next. And a calm person they can't predict is quietly unsettling because they can't manage you. Imagine someone says something provocative, fishing for a flinch, and you just pause, hold their eyes for a second, then answer, measured and level. That pause alone changes the room. It says you're choosing your response, not leaking it. Control of your own reactions is rare, and rare things make people pay attention. Sign 7. You don't need everyone to agree with you. Most people quietly bend their opinion to match the room. It feels safer to belong. The psychologists Edward Deci and Richard Ryan built a whole framework around this. The difference between people driven from the inside and people driven by outside approval. The therapist Carl Rogers called it an internal locus of evaluation, judging your own life by your own compass instead of the crowd's. Most people need the nod. They need you to agree so they know they're okay. And here's the reframe. If you don't need their agreement, they lose their leverage over you. Approval is a currency. The moment you stop spending it, people can't buy your behavior with it. Picture a group leaning hard one way and you calmly holding a different view. You're not arguing, you're not defensive, you just don't need them to come with you. That's deeply disarming because most disagreements are really a quiet plea to be liked. Yours isn't. And when someone clearly doesn't need your approval, you can't help but respect them. That self-possession is the most intimidating thing on this whole list. So let's pull it together. What do all 7 of these actually have in common? Not one of them is about trying to intimidate anyone. That's the whole secret. Comfort with silence. No need for drama, real questions. Calm under fire. Reading people, a filter. No hunger for approval. Every single one is a sign of the same thing. Inner security. You're simply not sending the anxious signals most people give off without noticing. No scrambling to fill space, no chasing reactions, no begging to be liked. And the absence of all that anxiety is so rare that it stands out as power. You're not cold, you're not better than anyone, you're just settled. And settled people make unsettled people a little nervous. That's all intimidation ever was. So here's my question for you. Which of these 7 was most you? Drop the number in the comments. I actually read them. And if one specific person popped into your head while watching, send them this video. They probably have no idea they're doing it either. If you want to understand the quiet confidence underneath all of this, the psychology of self-assurance is your next video.